What's up, everybody? Welcome back to How It's Done. Today I am going to teach you how to troubleshoot, or at least give you a little bit of an idea. I realize that troubleshooting is something that requires an extensive amount of experience and know-how and just a certain mindset. But, ooh, that's a funky looking light color. But I'm going to use these. You can see one of my lights here is not working to its fullest capacity. So I'm going to take this opportunity to kind of show you how I approach troubleshooting this particular light. This is a Hydra 26 by Aqua Illumination, I think is the company. It's known as AI. So I'm going to go ahead and take this light apart and actually probably take this one off as well. And the method I'm going to be using with this is because I have one that works and one that doesn't. So the approach when you have that set up is you can swap some pieces around and see what will make this one work, and you know that that's the part that's bad on it. Another approach when troubleshooting could be that you just figure out where the point of failure is if you don't have one. See if you can find a burnt mark on the inside or something where water may have gotten on it. So we'll go ahead and look at that too. But most likely we're just going to take some parts from this, swap it into here, some parts from this, and swap it into here, and then plug them back in and see which one works and which one doesn't. And that'll help us identify where the problem is, and then we'll see if that is a chip or a piece that we can order to replace. Alright, so first thing we're going to do with this process is actually going to be to turn off the power to the lights. There you go. Got that done. And now, this may seem kind of silly that I'm doing this, but I'm going to go ahead and label them. And you can't see, but that's A for this light, because this light is A-OK. And then B. Can you see that? Maybe not. Well, there's a B on there. B for this light because it's bad. There you go. Also A and B, you know. So then we'll go ahead and unplug power from these. And we'll go ahead and remove these two lights and take them over to the table to take apart. Alright, so we got light A and light B. Both of them with facing the same direction. We're going to go ahead and take the 4 screws out of these, each one, and then we'll get this thing up. This one actually is already got a screw taken out. I got a little overzealous, but we'll take these screws out of these, take the bottom plate off. Remember, these are upside down, so that's the bottom. And we'll see what we got under the hood. Alright, I'm going to be careful to keep the components from A over here and B over here. So this way we don't mix things up unintentionally. Because as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the process we're using to troubleshoot this is going to be swapping some parts around. And yes, I've already lost this screw. Isn't that a bummer? So go ahead and take this top off. Now when you're removing the tops of these, you're going to notice that there's these 2 little push buttons back here, so you want to be careful of anything that doesn't come off. And I see the tape is picking the lens off with it, so that's fine. So we're just going to go ahead and flip this over. I'll take this lens out too. Place that on there. Same thing with this guy. Lift it up and back. Clear that. Honestly, there's not a lot of not really any signs of water damage. I don't see any corrosion, any markings that would indicate there's been splashing on it. Nothing on the inside. Again, this is the good one. This is the one that's not working right. You can see that some of these LEDs are a little bit burnt, and actually see the same thing on the reflector here, how there's a little dark spot on this one right here. And there's a dark spot on this one, which would reflect to, I want to say it's that one, D4, but it's could also be D10. D10, I believe, would be the ultraviolet one, the UV. But I also see the same signs of wear on these. You know, you've got same thing here and again here, which looks like that will be D11, and those are actually cloudy on these, more so than the other ones. So, yeah. For this next part, it's a little bit tricky because we're going to have to very delicately pull all these pins apart to get this top board off. And there's, what, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, looks like 10 of these little connectors on here that we're going to have to very slowly pull these apart. So, yeah, delicate process. So we'll start out with this one that we know is bad, and just very delicately applying a little bit of pressure in each one of these corners right at the pin so that we don't snap the board or pull a male or female end off. Same thing right here at these connectors. We're just going to slowly inch this off. While I'm thinking about it, pull that power supply for the fan off. In case you didn't see what I just did there, this is the power supply for the fan, so we pulled that off. So, continue on with that. Pull these up a bit more. There we are. All right. And that is that. So, at this point, I believe this is the Wi-Fi chip. Not having an issue with it connecting to Wi-Fi, so I'm pretty sure that's not the problem, but I'm going to go ahead and set this down right here. We're going to do the same thing to this, starting with disconnecting this guy. And then slowly working our way up across these chips. See, that whole board just came loose. Kind of. Which is interesting. Because this is the good one. Okay. Set that down. Compare the two, and there are some different looking signs of overheating on this one. You can see all the different white marks along this, whereas this one does not have that. And then the other thing which stands out to me is if you look at the tone or color of the aluminum heatsink right here. And this will probably be easier to see when I get these LED chips off of here, but you can see how there's some darkening around the edges here, or rather some lightening, because here it's all one consistent color. Here they're not. The other thing that I find interesting is on the one that was working fine, it looks like the chip IDs have all but been worn off. You can almost make out a 4 and that's either a 2 or a 0. Maybe it's a 2-0, maybe a 4-7-0. It's hard to say. But when you come over to this one, they're pretty clear. So yeah, this is the one that is working. Which at a glance, this looks better on this one. So what I'm going to propose we do is take these two, swap them over here, and plug them back in so that B, or bad, is going to have the original relay control or power supply board, and the LED chips from A, and then this one will have the LED chips from B and the power supply board from A. And if this works, then we know the power supply is bad. If this one works, then we know these are bad. Well, obviously at this point, these will be over there. So let's do that. Okay. And I'm just gonna, oh yeah, you can see clearly the discoloration in that. And there's some slight discoloration in this. I mean, look at that. That's clear discoloration from heat right there. This is not as bad. It's got a little bit, but it's not bad. It's interesting though that this went to a copperish color and this went to a greenish, color. But anyway, I digress. So go ahead and put these back in place. And if you saw what I just did there, I took the 2 from here and put it down here, and took the 2 from here and put it down here. So again, we're just swapping these around. And this should give us an idea of what parts are bad and need to be replaced. I do know that there's a company out there that makes replacements for these LEDs. Replacement / upgrade, if you will. So I'm hoping that that's the case, because these lights are not cheap, and I would much rather repair this / upgrade this than have to buy an entirely new one. So I don't say that I'm cheap, I say that I'm frugal. Plus, you're gaining knowledge and experience fixing these items yourself. Understand though that if you are doing something like this and you're swapping parts from one piece to another, you always run the risk of damaging both of them. Instead of just having one that doesn't work, you have 2 that don't work. So understand that that is a risk involved. For example, if the power supply is bad and it failed sending too much power to the lights, by swapping these diodes out, you could be causing these diodes to fail as well. So, again, Proceed at your own risk, but I'm pretty confident here that that's not going to happen. The other thing, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this board seemed loose, although right now it doesn't, which is interesting. Maybe it was this one? No, they're on there. Well, this board I could not find screws to remove to swap these out, so I'm going to guess that this has some thermal paste or something that adheres it to the heatsink. That being the case, if this was loose, I would want to use some thermal paste to bond it back to it, because the heatsink is what keeps the board cool, and you want that to happen. So we're going to go ahead and line these back up so that the only parts we have swapped are the LEDs or the diodes. And we're going to very carefully line everything else back up and get it just barely started in there. Tap it down and then press it into place. I'm pressing right on top of where the connectors are and gradually working it down over time, because I don't want any sort of funky angles to bend the pins. Same thing here. So we've already got one pin that's a little bent there. So we'll bend him back in place and get that lined back up. Just kind of tapping it with my thumb at first to get them started, and then I apply a little bit more pressure as we go down. Just get them all the way snug. Last but not least, we put the lenses in place. That one's going to stay there. And then again, we hook the back into the little push buttons. Same thing here. We'll go ahead and put the screws back in. You know what? No, we don't. I forgot to plug in the power supply for the fan. That's critical. We need to do that. All right. Do not forget to plug the fan back in, because that's a guarantee that it will overheat. I'm glad I remembered that. See, I know what I'm doing and I still forget things. So always make sure, if you need to write it down, reverse your process of removal, disassembly, whatever you want to call it. That way you know you don't skip a step when you're putting it back together, like I almost just did. Because that will cause this to overheat and go bad. Trust me. Your heat sink is the only way these things cool, and the fan moving the airflow through the heat sink. On the back, basically what the fan does is it pulls air through these blades and up and out. So the other thing you can do is you can take this piece off and clean the blades of the fan, clean the little ridges here. Make sure that you're getting good airflow. Over time, dust will build up. Just like on your computer, dust builds up on the fan. Same thing happens here. So consequently, this process can also be helpful if you're repairing a TV. A lot of different sites now will offer TV repair kits, where they basically send you a good chunk of the circuit boards that are internal that are required to fix it. So if you've got a TV that's just not turning on, good chance it's the power supply board, but you can go onto some of these sites and get that. Go ahead and swap it out. You might have seen my video on how to repair a TV. If not, go ahead and check it out. So yeah, this is A, and this is B. And as I was talking, I realized I did not plug in the power supply for A, did I? For the fan. The downside of talking to a camera while you're trying to work is sometimes you can distract yourself. So, really quickly, let's take this apart. Yep. Did it twice now. Not smart, Brian. At least you remembered to do that before you plugged it in. If I plugged it in, it probably would have been okay for a short period of time, but you don't want it to do that long term. It will overheat. And honestly, the discoloration in the light B is, I'm very surprised that thing has that discoloration. So let's go ahead and plug these back in. We'll turn the power back on and see what happens. Alright, so we've plugged in the power supplies. Let me go ahead and remove this tape if I can. Yeah. And I'm just going to stick that right here so that we know that's light A, and this one, same thing. And put that right there. A and B. And now we go ahead and turn the lights on. Alright, power's on. And we can see all four of them are pulsing, which is good. And it will take a few seconds for them to turn on. Hopefully, this one lights up normal, this one doesn't. If that's the case, the parts that I already know I can get online will fix this. But let's just see what happens. Also, I want to see that the fans are working on this. So, some of these are cleaner than others. Some of these are just nasty. So, let's see what they do. Whoop. Yeah. So, this one's got surprisingly slightly better light than it had, but yeah, same issue. So, it's not the LEDs, it's the actual power supply board, which is a bit of a bummer because I don't know if I can get that part. But now we conclusively know that because we've swapped out these other parts that it could be. Obviously, it's not the Wi-Fi relay. They both connect to Wi-Fi. I can control them, so that's not your issue. But yeah, that's how you troubleshoot using one that works and one that doesn't. You swap out parts and through that process identify what the problem might be. Thanks for joining on How It's Done. If you like more videos like this, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up to get this out to more people so more people can learn how to troubleshoot some stuff. Thanks for joining How It's Done, and we'll see you on the next video.